I never thought a harmless joke could threaten the foundation of my marriage. Yet, here I am, facing the harsh reality of my mistake. My name is Wanda, and I am a 34-year-old woman who once believed my husband James would never leave me, no matter what. I was convinced that our relationship was unshakable, built on a solid foundation of love, companionship, and mutual understanding. But I was wrong. James and I had been together for 7 years, married for 4. Over time, I had come to see our bond as unbreakable, something immune to trivial arguments or fleeting misunderstandings. He was a calm in my often chaotic life, a patient and easygoing partner who never made a fuss over minor inconveniences. Whenever issues arose, I had the habit of pushing him, teasing him, even poking fun at him, knowing he would always absorb it like a sponge soaking up water. I had taken comfort in that. What I didn't realize was that even the most serene waters have a breaking point. The night it all fell apart started as an ordinary gathering at the home of James's longtime friend Mike. It was meant to be a lighthearted evening. Good food, laughter, music, and the warmth of reconnecting with old friends. James wasn't particularly fond of large social gatherings, but he had agreed to attend, knowing how much I enjoyed them. He did that for me, and I appreciated it. At first, everything was perfect. I was in my element, sipping wine and chatting animatedly with Lisa, Mike's wife. The conversation, as it often did among close friends, shifted toward relationships. Someone posed an amusing hypothetical. If faced with danger, would our partners be capable of protecting us? It was a silly question, meant for fun. Without thinking, I laughed and blurted out, "James? Please. If we were jumped in an alley, I'd probably have to protect him." The room erupted in laughter. In that moment, it felt harmless, a light-hearted joke at James's expense. I hadn't meant to belittle him. It was just part of the playful teasing that had always been a part of our dynamic. But as the laughter settled, I noticed something. James had just entered the room, and he had heard every word. His expression didn't shift dramatically. No visible anger, no immediate reaction. But there was something there, a slight stiffening of his shoulders, a fleeting moment of something unreadable in his eyes. Then, just as quickly, he masked it, grabbing a beer and settling into a chair as if nothing had happened. But I could feel it. An invisible barrier had formed between us. I should have stopped there. I should have realized that, despite his silence, something had changed. But instead, I leaned into the humor. I continued the teasing, nudging Lisa as I added, "Honestly, he struggles just to open a jar. What would he do in a fight? Throw his accounting degree at someone?" Again, laughter. And again, James smiled, but this time it was different. The warmth that usually accompanied his smiles was missing. It was polite, distant, forced, and still I didn't see it. I had always assumed he would brush it off, as he always did, that his patience was endless. But when the party ended, he didn't wait for me. He grabbed his coat and walked straight to the car without a word. I scoffed, rolling my eyes. "Guess someone's feeling sensitive," I muttered under my breath. Lisa shot me a look, one that suggested I had gone too far. But I dismissed it, still convinced that James would shake it off. I was wrong. The drive home was thick with tension. I tried to break the silence with small talk, mentioning the food, the music, the funny moments from the evening. But James responded only with nods or short, clipped answers. The air between us was heavy, suffocating, filled with words he wasn't saying. Finally, I sighed, bracing myself for the conversation that would change everything. As we pulled into the driveway, I turned to James, still unable to grasp why he was taking this so seriously. With a slight scoff, I asked, "Are you really upset about that joke?" "I was just kidding." His fingers tightened around the steering wheel, his knuckles whitening as he took a measured breath. He didn't look at me when he spoke, but his voice carried a weight that sent a chill through me. "It's not just a joke, Wanda." His tone was unnaturally calm, too controlled, as if he'd been holding back for a long time. "It's the way you speak about me, as if I'm some kind of joke. Do you even respect me?" Taken aback, I blinked, my mouth slightly open in surprise. "Of course I do, babe. We tease each other all the time. You know I love you. My words were lighthearted, an attempt to diffuse the tension. But James simply shook his head. No, Wanda, you tease me, and I just take it. Silence filled the car, thick and suffocating. I let out an awkward laugh, trying to brush off the unease creeping up my spine. You're being dramatic. You're seriously upset over a joke? In front of Mike and Lisa? James exhaled through his nose, gripping the steering wheel for a moment before shifting the car into park. I'm upset because it's not just a joke, Wanda. It's who you are. You belittle me in front of others constantly, and I'm done pretending it doesn't hurt. Before I could come up with a response, he opened the door and walked into the house, shutting the door behind him without another word. The next morning, I expected everything to go back to normal, as it always did. James was the type to let things go after a good night's sleep. But when I walked into the kitchen, I was met not with his usual quiet but warm presence, but with something else entirely distant. He sat at the table with his coffee, but his gaze was vacant, his expression unreadable. Rolling my eyes, I poured myself a cup. Are you really still mad? I asked, my tone laced with disbelief. James looked up at me, and in a voice devoid of any emotion, he said, I don't think this is working anymore. My stomach dropped. A cold dread crawled over me as I slowly set my coffee down. What do you mean? He exhaled, his fingers lightly tracing the rim of his mug before he finally met my gaze. I don't think I want to continue this anymore, Wanda. I let out a short, incredulous laugh, shaking my head. Come on, James. You can't be serious about leaving me over a joke. His eyes darkened, but his voice remained steady. It's not just a joke. It's years of jokes. Years of feeling like less of a man around you. Years of being the punchline. Last night was just a breaking point. My arms crossed defensively over my chest. So, you're just going to leave? After everything? James pushed his chair back and stood, his posture firm, unwavering. Yes, Wanda, I am. I stared at him, waiting for the moment he would crack a smile, shake his head, and tell me he was messing with me. But he didn't. Instead, he grabbed his jacket and his keys, walking toward the door with a quiet certainty that sent panic rushing through me. James, don't be ridiculous, I called after him, my voice rising in urgency. We can talk about this. He sighed and turned slightly, his expression tired, exhausted in a way I had never seen before. No, Wanda, you talk. I listen. I've been listening for years, and I finally realized something. He took a breath, his grip tightening around his keys. I deserve better. And with that, he walked out the door. Days turned into weeks, and at first, I refused to believe he was serious. I called Lisa, desperate for reassurance that he just needed space, that he would come around like he always did. But Lisa hesitated before speaking, her voice softer than usual. Honestly, Wanda, I think he's done. I scoffed. Oh, please. He just needs time. No, she said gently but firmly. I think he needed a wake-up call. And last night was it. A week passed before the reality truly sank in. James wasn't coming back. My texts went unanswered. My calls went straight to voicemail. When I visited his office, his assistant informed me that he had left early. He was shutting me out completely. And for the first time, I began to question whether I had truly pushed him too far. The answer was painfully clear. Yes, I had. For years, I had treated him as if he was the lucky one to have me. But the truth I had refused to see was that I had been the lucky one to have him. I had spent so much time making him feel small that I had failed to recognize his quiet strength, his unwavering patience, and the love he had given me unconditionally until I had broken it. And now, sitting alone in our half-empty apartment, scrolling through old photos of us, I realized the biggest joke wasn't the one I made at the party. The biggest joke was my belief that he would always be there, no matter how I treated him. The man I had once seen as weak was far stronger than I had ever acknowledged, and I was the fool who only saw it after he walked away.